Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it.
Hey, and welcome back to my channel. So guys, I found out this interesting video on TikTok that I want to share with you guys. I mean, why not, guys? So we have this Russian white guy who's calling out Black Americans to be privileged, and is tired of them complaining about this and that. Well, it looks like this guy did his own research or not. So let's just get into the video, but make sure I watch this video up to the end, because this guy responded with a longer video after he got stitched. This should be fun, guys. Let's watch the clip.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more. Here's the average salary in Mexico, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Vietnam, all big countries with huge economies from different continents. And here is average welfare check in USA. You see the difference? People all over the world have to work hard for this money, while people in America are getting more for doing absolutely nothing, just because they are born in the United States. Isn't that a privilege? Being richer than others just because of your birthright? Yes, it is. Oh, and just to be clear, it concerns all Americans, not just Black Americans. All Americans are privileged as hell, and it's about time we acknowledge that Black Americans are no exception. Now just imagine being born in Harlem, New York, one of the richest cities in the world, in one of the richest countries in the world, and complaining about not being able to get out of the ghetto, while some Middle Eastern refugee has to smuggle himself to America illegally in a cargo bay of the ship, not having home, not having money, not having citizenship, just to get the slightest chance at life that you had since birth. Oh, and he's running from his country because your country destroyed his home, by the way. And he still somehow manages to open up his own business so he can provide for his kids. And you can't get out of the ghetto, really? Man, maybe take a subway? And please, don't give me that excuse about America being racist. Here's the list of richest households in the United States by ethnicity. White people are not even in top 5. It's Indians, Filipinos, Taiwanese, Sri Lankan, Japanese, and then some. How could they all be so prosperous if the country is so racist? Look, America is literally the least racist country in the world. Can you name any other dominantly white country that had black president for 2 terms in a row? No, you can't, because I can guarantee you the rest of the world is actually racist as hell. You're living in the paradise of political correctness. Oh, and it might seem like I'm talking to Black Americans here, but I'm not. I know that majority of Black Americans don't even care about it all. I'm talking to crazy Americans. I'm talking to Americans who actually believe that their country is some racist, villainous hellhole that oppresses people. It's not. Look, your country is alright, I promise. So yeah, you had slavery. Who didn't? Now really, tell me, who didn't? So you have racists in your country, and who doesn't? No, really, name a single country without racists. I'll wait. Stop focusing on yourself so much. This is destructive narcissistic tendency that destroys your country. You have 2 kind of whack jobs in USA. First kind thinks that you can invade any other country in the world because you're force of good. And another kind thinks that you can appropriate culture and history of any other country in the world and paint it black because you're the force of evil and you have to constantly atone for your sins before black people. Well, guess what? You don't get to do any of those things. Keep your greedy hands off Middle Eastern oil and European history. Oil is black, white history figures are not. You're not villains, but you're not heroes either. You're just regular people. Just regular people who are born into insane privilege the rest of the world can only dream of. And that's exactly why.
I think he said more than he should have said. I think he crossed the line, guys. Please let me know what you think about that. This is the reason why I'm gonna play this as my first stitch, because this guy, this first person who stitched this video, brought receipts on the table, guys, and I don't want you to miss any of those. Make sure you watch the video up to the end. Yeah, the stitch is about like 5 minutes, guys. Or why am I even talking? I'm wasting time. Let's get into the stitch.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
Bet, please do tell me how privileged Black Americans are.
Here's the average salary in Mexico, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Vietnam, all big countries with huge economies from different continents. And here is average welfare check in USA. You see the difference?
You missed already. I guess cost of living just doesn't exist. Cost of living in Mexico compared to the United States, Ukraine compared to the United States, Egypt compared to the United States, and Vietnam compared to the United States. So while we can just say, oh, these are very big economies and look at the difference in wage compared to the welfare checks, we must take into account how much money it actually costs to live in a given society in order to determine whether or not these things are disproportionate. And given that in every fucking country you just mentioned, the cost of living is so much lower than the United States, you can understand why the difference is there. Also, this video is supposed to be about how privileged black people are, but the first thing he talks about is welfare checks. Also claiming that a group of people are privileged because a welfare check was set at an amount that's higher than another country's wage is fucking dumb, considering the people that live in the country with the welfare checks are considered poor for that country in that economy that they need to live in. So saying, oh my god, you're considered poor here, but you wouldn't be in a different country is as dumb as saying, oh, you were just raped. Well, guess what? People have died, so you must be privileged.
People all over the world have to work hard for this money, while people in America are getting more for doing absolutely nothing, just because they are born in the United States.
Miss number 2, it'd be a damn shame if the majority of people on welfare are actually working. Because, oh yeah, while we can complain about how high the welfare checks are compared to other countries, it isn't even enough to live in America off of, which forces people who are even working full-time to still work a job while being on government assistance. Again, because while we can play Oppression Olympics, context matters.
Now just imagine being born in Harlem, New York, one of the richest cities in the world, in one of the richest countries in the world, and complaining about not being able to get out of the ghetto, while some Middle Eastern refugee has to smuggle himself to America illegally in a cargo bay of the ship, not having home, not having money, not having citizenship, just to get the slightest chance at life that you had since birth.
It's a damn shame you don't even realize how stupid this just was. Level 1, let's talk about your logic. This essentially boils down to don't ask for anything more if you're already receiving more than somebody else. Which, for obvious reasons I would hope, makes zero fucking sense. That Middle Eastern refugee who had to smuggle himself on a ship in order to make it to America has it measurably better than a Southeast Asian kid who will live and die in the same village buried under plastic and trash from our pollution. Does that mean we should make no effort to make it so that Middle Eastern refugees shouldn't have to smuggle themselves into the country to have a good life? Does that mean that those Middle Eastern refugees should just shut up and acknowledge the fact that they're more privileged than somebody else? Fucking no! And if you say yes, then you're counteracting everything your entire video is about. Hence why Oppression Olympics is a dumb game to play. Level 2 of why this stupid. Let's run the actual numbers. Seeing as you mentioned refugees coming to America, let's compare them to black people in America. Again, context matters. After 5 years in the United States, refugees have a median household income of $22,000. After 15 years, that grows to $37,000. And after 50 years, it grows to $67,000. Black people in the United States had a median household income of $30,400 in 1970. 51 years later, that number is $48,297, which means if we run the numbers on that, in the same amount of time it has taken refugee household income to grow by $45,000, black household income has grown by $17,897. So if I wanted to stoop down to your level and assume that money, devoid of all context, immediately denotes privilege, who is more privileged in the United States? This very point is something that you go on to contradict yourself on 2 seconds later when you go on to say.
And please, don't give me that excuse about America being racist. Here's the list of richest households in the United States by ethnicity. White people are not even in top 5. How could they all be so prosperous if the country is so racist?
Bucko, I don't even think you realize what you're saying here.
This is exactly why context matters, because I'm not sure what privilege you're trying to preach to black people about, when not only do all the other Americans make more money than black Americans, average Americans make more money than black Americans. Would you really make the argument that for any other demographic in any other country, them making less than what the average person in their country makes is them having privilege? No, the hell you wouldn't, which is why you try to bring it to a worldwide context, because as soon as you start talking about American context, you get blown the fuck out of the water and start trying to disprove racism by Obama.
Can you name any other dominantly white country that had black president for 2 terms in a row?
Who's gonna tell him that the next president started a rumor that he wasn't even born here simply because he was black?
Now we can talk about how a lot of these immigrant groups you mentioned have higher rates of college degrees, which is something that is quite literally selected for prior to immigration into this country, meaning a disproportionate amount of them coming over with education already, which is why they make so much more than the native-born population. We can talk about how Asian Americans have not faced the same institutional barriers as black people. We can talk about Harlem and how you're apparently confused that many black people can't make it out the ghetto.
And you can't get out of the ghetto, really? Man, maybe take a subway?
When the city was redlined to high hell. East Harlem had the 7th lowest household income among 55 other New York neighborhoods, and almost 1/3 of households live below the federal poverty line, and how it was literally the birthplace of the very Renaissance that was an artistic backlash to intense anti-black racism in the country. We can talk about the fact that while yes, slavery and racism exist in countries all over the world, the slavery that built the new world was chattel and racialized, which is something that was unique, that was not found in the Middle East, in Africa, or in Europe prior. But something tells me that if you don't even have the brain cell count to realize that you just made an entire video about why black people are privileged while using the same racist, factually incorrect statements that have been used since 20 years after slavery to justify why black people are in such shit positions, then something tells me you're not ready for that conversation. I award you no points. May God have mercy on your soul.
And we have to talk about it more.
Okay, I'm gonna break it down, the origin of this racist statement. Okay, so there arises a time where an oppressor classes accumulate such a vast amount of concentrated wealth that it grants them the identity of nationhood. This achievement of nationhood cannot be done without the exploitation of another country. What I'm saying is that development produces its own negation, underdevelopment. This is evident when it comes to Europe underdeveloping Africa. Karl Marx came up with this concept of base and superstructure, which the base being the economic development of society and the superstructure being the culture developed from that economic base. Okay, so how do we know this to be true? Let's look at America. This, of course, is evident when it comes to the achievement of nationhood of America, which starts from the colonization of native peoples and the exploitation of black people with slavery and, imperialism. We know this to be true because everybody knows about slavery, everybody knows about the colonization. Not a lot of people know about imperialism, but that's okay. Now, with this being the base, then the superstructure should reflect off that. With the superstructure being culture, being linguistics, being food, etc., and so forth, right? See, capitalism gave way to a global market, which interconnects the world to a market. That being said, this market is based off of competition, blah, 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 blah. Competition reduces own negation, monopoly, blah, 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 right? That being said, because the exploitation and colonization of black and native peoples happened, this gave way for a superstructure of racist culture, which gave way to racist culture, racist religion, racist games, ideas, and so forth. I mean, we can go back and look at the history of American songs. We can look at, games they used to play. We can look at media that was displayed. All this is evidence, But the globalization within capitalism allowed for this media to be worldwide, this racist media to be worldwide. And we know this to be true because, not just this guy is saying racist rhetoric, but a lot of people use this talking point.
Black Americans are incredibly...
I snap. Said some shit. Let's go back. Look, my boy, calculate the rent against how much we earning. You feel me? And then throwing accountability of living expenses, meaning if you got a car, throw in a car. If you got, everybody got to eat. So just put the two mandatory things. You feel me? Food and, what is that called? And the rent. Now, if your rent is $1,300, which, you feel me, every damn near state in America, that's how much it is, you feel me, just for a studio. Bruh, you gotta make $1,300, so that $600 you brought up wasn't shit. We not even making rent out here, bruh. You sound dumb. Privileged where? We privileged to come out here and struggle in our motherfucking, this is our continent. This is our land. This ain't America, my boy. We not black. We not African American neither. You feel me? We the original Indians. So when you sit up here talking about our struggles, bro, you don't even know the half, my dude. You're very uneducated. You got to step back and go read some books. You cloud chasing. I see you when it got all the followers, man. You feel me? Hand them over.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it.
Oh, I wanted to respond to this one for a good while. First off, shut the... Cannot say that on TikTok. You're trying my patience, white European man. Stop speaking on black people and black people issues when you are white. And you quite obviously subscribe to whiteness. I mean, come on. You're going to say we got it all, and then you literally show graphs where we're at the bottom, making the least, talking about black people on welfare. You don't even live in America. Of course, we get more money on welfare if our cost of living is higher. It's America. Duh. What you're doing by making and posting that video is very harmful. It's harmful to me and every other black American. You are literally doing us harm with your misinformation and lies. And honestly, I'm like, y'all, trans community, queer community, where are you at? Honestly, we're black people, we're always under attack. All right. And it's by the same racist white supremacy ideology that you hear coming out of this a-hole's mouth. So the moment you actually start defending us too and actually taking these guys for what they are, white supremacists and racists, the sooner we're going to freaking change things. All right, time to clean house. No more allowing this. It's disgusting. Whoever knows this dude, you need your fact check. You need to change your game right now. And reparations for that for sure. Got my ancestors looking at you out the side of their neck like, excuse me?
So this is the part where you responded, guys. You responded to the stitches, and if you're still watching up to this time, it means you enjoyed this entire video. Please make sure you subscribe, turn on your notification bell so that every time I upload a new video, guys, you'll be notified. And let's just watch the response, guys.
In my previous video, I stated two simple things. First, black Americans are incredibly privileged, and second, they have no right to steal from other countries. Second statement is widely discussed right now because of Black Cleopatra on Netflix, but the first statement was unexpected for a lot of people. African Americans and privilege sound like oxymoron. So I compared two simple metrics: average salary in Egypt, whose history Americans are trying to blackwash, and welfare check in USA. As you can probably guess, average welfare check in the United States is higher than average salary in Egypt. Now, instead of admitting their privilege like a normal privileged class should, a lot of creators and commenters started to respond to me with the same thing over and over. Cost of living, cost of living, cost of living.
Cost of living, cost of living, cost of living, cost of living.
Cost of living in the US right now is ridiculous.
Ridiculous, you hear? And what's even more ridiculous is that not a single one of them even tried to do research. Not a single one of them even tried to calculate the ratio between the cost of living and average income. They either didn't think of that, which is not very smart, or they didn't want to because they didn't want to know the truth, which is honestly so disappointing. So yes, cost of living in America is obviously higher than in Egypt. Just like cost of living for Jeff Bezos is higher than mine, but it doesn't mean that we're on the same level, right? There is this website called Numbeo, just like Brainier of people who don't do their research. It allows us to compare prices between different countries. Let's compare America and Egypt. Here's the prices for milk, for beer, for meat, for Big Mac and McDonald's, and I even found the prices for the latest iPhone. But whoa, wait a second. Egyptian iPhone is actually higher in price than American? There are import fees? Who would have thunk? Unimaginable. So let's not imagine that. Let's pretend that didn't happen. And instead, let's calculate the cost of living for a lonely person who spends very little money. Numbeo allows us to do that too. It's $259 for Egyptian and $1,007 for American. That's a huge difference, but it seems fair. I didn't trick you, anyone, right? I didn't trick you. Go and check it yourself. You should have done it before, actually, but do it now. And now to the tricky part, average salary. For some reason, people got very offended because I mentioned welfare checks. I really don't understand why. The point was, obviously, that poorest American is still richer than average Egyptian. But okay, you don't like welfare checks, let's compare average salaries like you wanted. Numbeo allows us to do that too. Here is America, 4th place and $4,000. And there is Egypt, second from the end with... Wait a second, $146? That can't be right? It doesn't even cover the moderate cost of living we calculated. There is probably some mistake, so let's try another source, shall we? World data, seems legit. America, $5,911. Egypt, $279? There really must be some mistake, guys. Let's try it old-fashioned way. Average salary in Egypt, Finally, $586. That's the biggest number I could find, guys, really. And we also will take the smallest American salary I could find, just so you know that I am pushing your narrative. I'm pushing it really, really hard. I am on your side. Okay, so now that we know average salary, let's take away the cost of living we calculated. What's left? In the end of the month, average Egyptian will have $327, while American will be left with $3,224. So, in the end of the month, average American could afford 2 latest iPhones, one for him and one for his mother, while average Egyptian can afford the handful of sand, or to sell himself to slavery, depending on what source we choose. This iPhone is the best symbol, the best illustration of your privilege. Privilege you for some reason choose to ignore even when it slaps you in your face. I mean, in the form of my videos. But please, I beg you, just for a second, stop seeing me as an enemy and try to see me as the source of information. Just try to imagine that that's how people in Africa live. That's how people in Asia live. That's how people live all over the world, actually. Why is it so hard for you to be grateful for what you have? Would it kill you to just accept your privilege and thank God for that every day? No, really, white Americans did that. Why black Americans can't? Oh, because you're the poorest in your country? That's like being Elon Musk's kid with the least presents on Christmas. You can cry about it to your mommy, but not to the outside world. You have one of the greatest economies in the world. You're fluent in the most popular language in the world. You in the epicenter of the world's culture. Why is it not enough? Why do you have to steal from other people? Why do you have to appropriate their culture, blackwash their history? Oh, and look how you react on me, by the way. Delete this video, delete your account, delete your whole life. Let's cancel this gentleman immediately. Black people, you know what to do. Let's just report him, he'll get banned. These comments stink of privilege. You know full well you're in the position of power, and that's why you're so confident in your force to shut down anyone calling you out. This is exactly what privileged class would do. So first, you have to acknowledge your privilege. Second, you have to stop stealing from other countries. And third, you really need to learn how to count. But if the system failed you and you don't know how to count, you can always count on me. You're welcome.
Okay, guys, so do you think he responded to the teachers, or he just added more fire to what he started? He's added more fuel to his fire. Guys, so please let me know what you think about this in the comment section below, and I would definitely, by the way, please, let's just be peaceful about this. I don't promote violence on my channel, guys, and subscribe if you have not subscribed to this channel, guys, and I'll definitely see you in my next video. Peace.